Dear viewers, hello and welcome back to the second day and last day of the European Hub for the third International Fratelli Tutti conference with the special topic of belonging together, migrants, refugees, displaced persons, and global solidarity. We have an exciting schedule for day two and we will start in a few minutes. I just want to give some general informations. Our panels will be structured in 10-minute inputs and or presentations by our dear speakers, followed by roughly 10 to 20 minutes long Q&A sessions. So please do not hesitate to write your questions in the comment section on YouTube. I will collect them during the talk for the sessions afterwards. Also, feel free to share, like, and subscribe the live stream and to the Fratelli Tutti YouTube channel itself to spread the word about the conference. All streams will stay online so that especially all the viewers living in the American and African time zones, which right now have to catch a little bit of sleep, will be able to rewatch all the talks. Furthermore, you can be part of a broader discussion about this conference over the platform Blue Sky with the special hashtag FT25. So let's come to our first panel. We are joined today by Lina Mitschke from DaMOst e.V. for our first talk. The Dachverband der Migrantinnenorganisationen in Deutschland, which you could translate to the umbrella organization of migrant organizations in Eastern Germany, DaMOst, connects federal state networks and associations of migrant organizations in the new eastern states of Germany, representing over 300 migrant organizations. DaMOst represents the interests of the population with a migration background living in East Germany at the federal level. At DaMOst e.V., Mrs. Mitschke is the head of the project AntiRaktiv, active against everyday racism by empowering and through educational work. Today, Ms. Mitschke will give us a talk called Communities United, Community Care as a Political Force. In this talk, she will introduce us into the specific history of migrant communities and structures of self-organization, especially in the eastern part of Germany, and why this leads to a certain approach for East Germany. Dear Ms. Mitschke, thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity, and yes, hello to all. My name is Lina Mitschke. I prefer to be called Lina. Yes, maybe to my background, usually I'm an art historian with a special interest in global art history and the decolonization of visual art. And currently my research, when I'm not working in the project, my research focuses on contemporary African art. And in the past, I gave lectures at different universities in Eastern Germany. Yes, and yes, I lecture about topics like post-colonial theory, modernism, and contemporary art. Yes, but maybe I start with the title. I think about communities united, community care as a political force, and I thought that this would describe what we are doing with the project, but also with the work at DaMOst. And yes, before I start to talk about our work at the project and how this work relates to the ongoing and parts very awful and dehumanizing discussions on migration in German politics and society, especially after the last week. I want to time travel with you in historic times and explain the demographic developments in East Germany due to migration and what this means for the aims and the work of an umbrella organization like DaMOst e.V. Yes, for a brief overview of the history of migration in the GDR, I would like to quote from a brochure we produced within a project called Migrants at DaMOst. It's a project about oral history and to try to generate new narratives and yes, get this special history more attention in the mainstream media. So yes, on the slide you get a little glimpse into it. So if you want some, just tell me. Yes. Okay. Even though the stereotypical view on the society of the GDR was very white and homogeneous, East Germany has therefore experienced a diverse history of migration throughout its own history. But this is rarely discussed in public or seen as a part of an overall German migration history. one part of migration into the GDR is represented through contract workers, which came from Vietnam, Mozambique, or Poland, and especially they work in the fields of the wagon construction or in the coal mining industry. And this was the biggest groups from Mozambique, Poland, and Vietnam, and they worked for example, at Halle, at the place where I live today, and where the main borough of DaMOst is located, and also in parts of the Lausitz. Lausitz is a big region, which is a part of the federal state of Brandenburg and the federal state of Saxony. And it's a very big cultural region with a certain meaning for East Germany. Yeah. But we have also, the GDR also had contracts with nations like Algeria, Cuba, Angola, China, and other parts. All right, another part came from apprenticeship or to study in the GDR, and some of them were also political immigrants. And with the fall of the wall and in the 90s, we have change there. And migration was mostly represented through late repatriates, refugees admitted under a quota system, and war refugees from Yugoslavia or Eastern Europe. And later they come from Syria, Afghanistan, and today from Ukraine. And so we have a very amazing melting pot who differs a lot from the main story of migration in Germany. Especially, it's more a Western story of migration for overall Germany. And so, yes, I wanted to share this little knowledge with you to broaden this. Yes. And as you get a deep dive in where DaMOst works, where we are located, and which organization are under us, I try to give you a glimpse with this slide. So you see the federal states, former GDR, yes, and the organizations within this. The main consequences from the demographic development I described before is that in the GDR, migrants are fewer in number, and especially in comparison to West Germany. And we don't have this dominating migrant groups like there, for example, the Turkish community or the Italian community. In consequence, the beginning of migrant self-organization, which started with the fall of the wall, was since they were cross-community-like. And I think this is the certain potential, and cross-community-like is also DaMOst. As Mitschke said, we are a non-profit organization by migrants for migrants, and we are cross-community-like, political, independent, non-denominational, and we try to work across generation and also to try to adopt an intersectional perspective. And we as DaMOst see ourselves as the voice of the East, and we are convening the needs of migrant population on the municipal, state, and also on a federal level. And this we can do through our member organizations. And you see logos of them here, for example, LAMSA, Migranet, Mir, or also Migrants. And this member organization unites the migrant organizations on the municipal level. The little, they are not that little, but in this comparison, yes. But this migrant organizations unites the federal organizations, like, for example, LAMSA, and these organizations are part of DaMOst, our members. And so we, yes, we estimate that we represent about 10,000 people. But let's come to our project. Community-based counseling against racism. We are part of a big pilot project that is exceeded through all of Germany with different organizations who have advocacies on different levels of anti-discrimination or working with people who faces who suffer the violence of the far right and anti-racism and anti-Semitic violence, all this stuff. And we as DaMOst, we have the aim to build counseling centers. And our approach is community-based. What this means, we believe that communities have the knowledge for themselves how they can help themselves and which problems they face. And we try to, yes, to give them a professional structure that they can work for their communities, to help, to educate, to bring them into the political field, to participate in, yes, in the regional living space of this stuff. And with this approach, we want to be accessible, more accessible for people. We want to work multilingual. We want to be trustworthy. And I think as migrant organizations, when people who suffer racism come to us, we know how this feels. And this is why we get trust from the people. And we are trustworthy. And this potential we want to use to get more people to come to us and tell about the things that are happening to them. Yes, and also we are biased. We believe in the stories they tell us. We believe in the violence. We believe in the structural violence and all this stuff. And yes, and also we want to be intersectional. So when you suffer different kinds of discrimination, we want to get to know the mechanics behind that more. And so this is our approach to combat racism, and our counseling is also political. We see this as a political force. Yes, maybe two terms we work with. As we are in East Germany, we have to acknowledge we don't have safer spaces. They are non-existent in East Germany. We can't guarantee a space where you don't get discriminated or treated well, when you don't have hierarchies, power, and all this stuff. So we want to create spaces where we listen to each other, where we can share our own experience of discrimination, and spaces where we can share with each other what strengthens us against that and what empowers us. And this is very important. We want to empower people to find solutions to protect themselves, to protect their communities. And also we want to create spaces where we develop visions together. And there comes the cross-community work. As you have all these different views on certain kinds of discrimination, you can develop more broad visions, you can develop more unity. And this is something we want to create, especially for East Germany, as we face very severe political situation, which influences us, our daily life a lot. And so, yes, this is a very big aim, to develop visions together, cross-community. Yes, the definition of community, yes, you had this there. I think everyone can imagine something under this, but maybe our project is located in all federal states of East Germany. In Brandenburg, we have Fürstenwalde. In Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, we have, oh, I'm sorry, this is the German names. We are in the cities of Greifswald, Brandenburg, Rostock, Schwerin, and Wismar. They are, in Germany, we call this middle cities. They don't really big. They are about 50,000, a population of 50,000 or something like that. So these are typical cities for the East. And also the East is more rural than everything. And through our counseling centers in the cities, we try to reach out also in the rural areas. And then for the last part, I want to share with you our flyer, one we try to reach the people and where we explain our work. And so we try to, yes, explain to people what is racism to certain kind of questions. So do you feel like you are being treated unfairly due to your skin color? Are you facing trouble finding work or housing in this context? This is a big problem in Germany, for example, for refugees and people who people who don't fit in the main story of how Germans have to look like or have to be like. And also school is a big problem. In school, pupils really face severe, segregation, degradation, and all this stuff. And we are here to help them with this. So, and here we explain how we can support you and how we can help. Yes, as we try to treat you honestly and transparently. We try to take your concerns seriously, and we try to find solutions, and we are accompanying you. And this is very important. We try to be there, and it's not just one discussion. It's about to really accompanying the people with the struggle, going to different institutions, referring to additional professional counseling services. And so we try to, build a network of people, institutions that are doing care work for people, and try to bring the theme of racism and discrimination into these structures, institutions, and how we can be together more alert to these things, and how we use this in our language and all this stuff, and how we mistreat people through our structures. And yes, this is our aim, to accompany people in their daily life. Yes. So, and our consulting process is cost-free. This is very important. And we are independent and not an authority. This I want to say at least. And if you want to get to know more about our project, you can visit our website, and there we have also other languages where you can see what we are doing. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry for my English. I'm a native German speaker. So yes, questions.
Thank you so much, Lina, first and foremost, for your input, and don't worry about the English. It was amazing. We understood everything. Yes, thank you so much for the input. To go into the quick Q&A session, the first thing that would interest me is, especially as DaMOst is located in Eastern Germany, you gave us a little bit of history of Eastern Germany, or let's say of the racist history of Eastern Germany. And as you're located there, I would like to ask, if so, which repressions are you facing by society, maybe by state actors, especially considering that you are located in Eastern Germany?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I have to start with that I'm very privileged. So I come from a white family. So I come from an academic family. So in my life and in the structures I'm in, I don't face much racism because for example, my skin color is more viewed as exotic, but I have the language skill. I know the codes of moving around. So for me, I can really go into the bubbles and be fine. But when you talk about people who are in refugee camps, or the institutions who take care of them, you can really see that they have no voice, and that nobody looks after what is happening and how they structure their environment where they live, and how they solve conflicts in it. And there is no knowledge, I think, at the moment, what really happened there and how people get mistreated, to be honest. And also when you come into institutions, for example, you have to do your status Yes. You have to get your identity card or something like this. I think it depends on how privileged you are. You face
Right. Depends
how
on how the society lets you pass, right?
yes,
By
yes,
knowing
yes,
certain codes, by having maybe certain privileges, but still you are in a kind of oppressed situation. But yeah, I think that's also a lot of things that I hear from my inner circle of friends or from my circle of friends at also at the university and academia that you have certain ways of passing, but still you feel you get a feeling, you get the vibe, if you want to call it like that.
yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. I'm always watched. When I go outside, I'm
Mhm.
always watched. When I
Yes.
go with the train, maybe nobody wants to sit next next to me. So,
Mm.
but I think also in Germany, what is special is discrimination through language. And this is something a lot of our clients, let me say this, tell us. Um, Other languages are not seen as good. You have to speak English, German in Germany. And if you don't have this access to language, it's very, very hard to be part of this society. And so this is also an aim of our project to
Mhm.
bring multilingual. This is such a gift and such a potential. Why we don't use it? But we have to break this thinking in Germany that everything has to be German. And our when we do conferences, when we do or when we meet uh, within our project, we come from different countries. We speak different languages, and so we speak English, we speak Farsi. Um, we switch from them to them, and we can discuss on this way. We don't need to have to be strict and talk like this. And
Mhm.
this is something I really want to have more in Germany, to be multilingual.
Hmm. Right, as we are a quite multicultural, multilingual society. So,
Yes,
as you said, the opportunities are already there. So, why not use them, right? And maybe
yes.
as a second question or a second field we could quickly go into, you talked about the intersectional approach also that DaMOst has. And I was a little bit reminded by a panel we had yesterday by Dr. Logeswaran, who told us about her concept of protective coping. And she
Mhm.
told us that what she and you also talked about the approach by DaMOst to build braver spaces, also as safe spaces. And with the word brave, I had to think about Dr. Logeswaran because she told us that she got into these studies also by looking at herself. That when she got into situations where she were discriminated and things like that, she at first already or always thought that she was the guilty one. She thought of
Mhm.
her, what did I do wrong? And of course, she did nothing wrong. She was just there existing. So, can you maybe elaborate again on why the intersectional approach, especially to build braver spaces, is so important?
Um, I did this in English. Okay. Maybe I start with myself. I told I'm very privileged, and it's a very very good experience to be in a room where you get forced to acknowledge your privilege and to think, should I speak? How long do I speak? Um, which power I have in this room? How I can share power? And I think this is an intersectional perspective. So when you have more women in the room, why men speak so much? But this is we learned that we are trained like this, but to break this we need braver spaces where I can where I, for example, where I can say as a woman, stop, to be honest, you talk for 10 minutes and no woman in this room had talked already. So this is a little example, but also when people maybe who are disabled, who can't speak, how can we make spaces where they can be part of it?
Mhm.
And we have to do this. And also us as an organization, we try to create spaces where we think of this. It's it's not easy, and we are at the beginning, but at least we acknowledge that we have to do something like this to really create unity and to really get to know of the realities of one another. And so we can see, okay, where is this individual thing? Oh no, it's something we all share. And so we can create this visions together. And I think this is very, very important. This is the unifying, especially at this moment worldwide, unifying of marginalized groups and make your struggle visible. Tell me about it, even though it hurts me, even though I'm also discriminating. I have to know this so we really can coalesce, you know?
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now for the end, I would like you to maybe again tell us how can we follow you? How can we stay in touch with your work? And maybe if you also want to tell us what you think we should put our focus on in the next time.
Oh, okay, how you can follow me? Yes, just follow DaMOst at Instagram or AntiRaktiv at Instagram. Yeah, I show our website. You can find us, and yes, if you have questions or have other things to say or have to critique us, just let us know. Yes, and yet now I forgot something I would give you. I think we have to be more international and also be more international on a global scale.
Okay.
And to be more in touch with, in my view, with Eastern Europe, with also the east of the world. Also, my roots, my father comes from Togo and lives in Togo. So the connection to the continent and to really get to know more what are the struggles we face in the future and how we can talk on a global level and work on a global level. I think this is very important, and this is something I really need, as my identity is global and cosmopolitan.
Yes.
And I don't see this in my country on a political level or in the mainstream discourse. There are so many people living here that are global in itself, and we have to use this.
Thank you so much for that appeal at the end. Dear viewers, that was Lina Mitschke by DaMOst e.V. Thank you so much for your input.
Yeah,
thank you for your
you.
talk, and thank you for joining us. In 2 minutes, actually, we are going to follow up with our next talker, who is Dr. Professor Paul Weller. I will share my screen for a second so that everybody can see what is coming. Mr. Weller is also already here. Hello, Mr. Weller.
Hi.
Hello. If you want to, we can give the viewers the quick break of the 2 minutes left, and then we will start at 12:30.
It's always good they should have a break.
Okay, okay. Then we will see each other in roughly, okay, now it's 1 minute, so I will just get my next moderation out and stop sharing. Well, then I will just start to introduce you. So our next talker, our next panel guest is Professor Dr. Weller. Professor Dr. Paul Weller is the Associate Director of the Oxford Center for Religion and Culture, and his work explores issues in religion, state, and society relationships, with special emphasis on matters of religion or belief, discrimination and equality, human rights, and freedom of religion or belief, especially in the UK and in Europe. Today, Dr. Weller will give us a talk called Resonance of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim Scriptural Traditions in Support of Solidarity with Migrants. In this talk, Professor Dr. Weller will expand on the way in which the challenge of migration can be rooted in the resonance of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scriptural traditions that support the human dignity and human rights of migrants. So, dear Dr. Weller, thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and to be part of this global project, this global conference. It's a privilege to be so. I'm speaking at the moment from Germany, where I live and where I'm also, as they say in German, a frisch gebackener Deutscher Bürger, a freshly baked German citizen, a dual citizen along with being a British citizen. So this also is part of my experience. I was very pleased to hear the last input, which shared an uncovering of things which are perhaps not visible even to many people in the western parts of Germany still today. So thank you for the chance to share with others. As you say, I'm going to try to talk to the theme, which I've slightly adapted in terms of the title by adding the words of the overall program title, not just Resonance of Jewish, Christian and Muslim scriptural traditions in support of solidarity with migrants, but also refugees and displaced persons. And the reason for that addition I'll come back to later. So as a starting point, I want to say that I think we can observe that on public occasions around the world, when secular power interfaces with public religion, what all too often takes place is a religious aspect to an event in which the voice of religious traditions becomes either so strongly generalized in order not to speak to much more than what Americans call motherhood and apple pie, good things that everybody thinks are good, or so ritualized that even the most challenging words that can come out of a tradition's scriptures are often presented and received in such a way that what takes place could be called a kind of conspiracy of mutually convenient understanding. Now, I think it is possible that sometimes this mutually convenient understanding, in which the resonance of sometimes inconvenient and challenging words that are often locked away into history or translated only into individualized moralisms, rather than having the potential of something to say to the public sphere, are broken through. And there has been a recent occasion for this, I'd suggest. On the 21st of January this year, there was an exception to this too often repeated pattern at the interface between secular power and public religion. And this was in connection with Donald Trump's accession to the presidency of the United States of America, when a prayer service was held in the Episcopalian Christian Washington National Cathedral. And during this service, something took place which, from their body language at the time, clearly caused disquiet to President Trump and those both physically close to him in the cathedral, and also those politically close to him in relation to his election campaigns of blaming asylum seekers and migrants for importing into American society a violence that's actually always been a big shadow part of American history, having been built on the institutionalized violence of the transatlantic slave trade and the still even less to today generally acknowledged violent dispossession of the original inhabitants of the land. So what happened in a way that electrified the global media and gave inspiration and hope to many in the USA who were concerned about the potential implications of the election of President Trump was that while speaking in a way respectful of the office of the president, the Episcopalian Bishop of Washington, Marion Edgar Budder, very clearly and specifically drew the president's attention to the ethical values and shared principles which are rooted in the scriptural teachings, quotes, that we are to be merciful to the stranger. And while proceeding in this way, Bishop Budd sought to appeal to the president's individual conscience rather than mounting a direct critique of his politics, but nobody could be left in any doubt of what she also saw and communicated as the relevance of this scriptural theme to contemporary public life. Now, while taking place in the context of a Christian service, the tradition which was being appealed to was one which I'd suggest can, in various ways, be found in the Jewish Tanakh, the Muslim Quran, and the Christian Bible. Now, not here to be able to unpack that in any very detailed and extensive way in the 10-15 minutes or the 10 minutes still available, rather wanting to perhaps stimulate people to think about this and do their own further work on it in each of the three traditions. It seems to me that there are resonant themes here across all three scriptural traditions and teachings. So in the Jewish Tanakh, one of the central themes, of course, is that of the liberation of the Hebrew people from slavery in Egypt, which then reappears throughout the Jewish scriptures. And it reappears not only in terms of merely a remembrance of something historical, but rather is brought again into the new present of the Hebrew people as they move forward in history, as a reminder, as a challenge to later generations, that when encountering the stranger, to remember that they too were once strangers in the land of Egypt, and to act accordingly with that remembrance in terms of their contemporary life. In the Quran, also in many ways, what's known as the Hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad and his companions from Medina to Mecca in the face of encountering eventually intolerable injustice, is not only a matter of historical record. Rather, it is also deployed in other parts of the Quran and in Muslim traditional understandings as a wider call and challenge. And in the New Testament of the Christian Bible, it's not without significance, I'd suggest, that Jesus of Nazareth, whose person, teaching, and work is seen by Christians as being of central significance for communicating the human face of God, so very soon after his birth, as a baby had to flee from the family, with his family, from the land of his birth, in many ways, one could say, ironically, to flee to the land of Egypt, to find refuge there from where his ancestors first had to flee to find liberation. But having noted these brief examples, it's important to try to delve a little more deeply into what this paper calls resonance of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scriptural traditions in support of solidarity with migrants, refugees, and displaced persons. And this is partly because we know that the deployment of scriptures in relation to contemporary issues can either be made too superficially, or, as we also know, if we're within any of these traditions, to the cost of our own communities, and even more tragically to the cost of others, it's possible for scriptural traditions to be deployed in ways that cut across human value and flourishing. So firstly, it's perhaps worth noting that this title of this presentation refers to what, in terms of current international and national laws, are usually seen as people belonging to distinct categories with specific attendant rights: refugees, migrants, displaced persons. Of course, in much political rhetoric today, they're often bundled together into a claim of, as made in Germany at the moment in much of the public debate, uncontrolled immigration. And these categories are, in our contemporary reality, I'd suggest, very important distinctions for what Germans call the Rechtsstaat and its legal processes, which have been increasingly eroded in the face of these kind of populist claims that don't distinguish in any way between different groupings of people. On the other hand, of course, in Jewish, Muslim, and Christian scriptures, and in the traditions and histories to which they refer, such categories of people were not present. And in scriptural hermeneutics, one should always be aware of importing present categories back into what are in origin very different histories and ways of life. But what one does find, I would suggest, in the traditions and within the scriptures is precisely a focus on the human that in that sense cuts across the different contemporary categories of migrant, refugee, or displaced person, and indeed citizen of a land. The focus on the human and the centrality of the human and how one responds humanly to the human is at the center of the scriptural traditions. Now, how mutually supportive is the nature of such texts across the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian scriptures of Tanakh, Quran, and Bible? Well, I'd suggest that in affirming the integrity, the separate integrity of each of the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish traditions and scriptures associated with them, it's possible that if Jews, Christians, and Muslims share an engagement with these scriptures and with the persons and themes to which they bear witness, then our understanding of these things can be enriched in ways that are not possible when approaching these scriptures from only our individual traditions. And here, I think, comes in the word that I used in the title of this talk, which is that of resonance, and a word that I think is of considerable importance when considering the different scriptural traditions. It's a word, actually, that also stands at the heart of a small and still fragile online-based interreligious project of which I'm part, called the Scriptural Resonance Project. Colleagues can find that on the internet if you wish afterwards at https://scriptural-resonance.com/. And within that project, the idea of resonance is not to claim that the meaning of a particular verse or theme or person in one of the scriptures is necessarily the same in one or more of the scriptures, but rather that there's something going beyond the merely historical, linguistic, or doctrinal comparisons, something that resonates in terms of the distinctive calls that come to humankind in and through each of the scriptural traditions, such that these texts can resonate both with each other and also with those who engage with and explore these texts in a spirit of openness. So taking this approach of an understanding of resonance, what I think can be seen in and through each of the Tanakh, the Quran, and the Bible is that strangers, in other words, those who in our contemporary societies are often classified as migrants, refugees, or displaced people, come to the societies other than those in which they've originated. They come as living human witnesses. They bring with them important direct experience of and testimony to events in other parts of the world, which would otherwise only be mediated to our societies through reports in the media and the work of humanitarian agencies. As witnesses, migrants, refugees, and displaced people confront us with the realities of our world. And for those of us who live in that part of the world from which colonialisms and imperialisms went out into the wider world, migrants, refugees, and displaced people also face us with our own country's historical responsibilities for sometimes creating and sometimes encouraging the kind of social, religious, and national tensions which underlie many of the contemporary contexts in the current world, and which, if we open our eyes to them, force us to see our country's place in the world in a new perspective. So, in drawing near to a close now, the presence of migrants, refugees, and displaced people, is not only for opening our eyes in relation to history, but also they are crucial to the present and future of societies into which they come, because the way in which we respond to their needs and demands also acts as a contemporary mirror in which we can see a reflection of what are the dominant moral and social values of receiving societies. In holding up a mirror, migrants, refugees, and displaced persons, I would suggest, challenge us to look at our distorted reality and not to turn away in disbelief, apathy, or frustration, but rather to find the courage and the imagination to try to create a different reality. And when refugees or migrants or displaced people come into a society with, in the first place, needs, one should not make the mistake of seeing them only as victims of war or in famine or injustice or poverty. Rather, they are active people, as we heard in the last session's presentation, seeking to fashion their own communities, their own futures, as part of a wider community and a wider future. So I think it's my conviction that the scriptural traditions, texts and themes and resonant calls across the Tanakh, Quran and Bible can, as that bishop did in the prayer service in Washington, D.C., become sources of inspiration, both to challenge where necessary and to inspire where helpful, all of us to embrace and not to shut out the challenges brought by migrants, refugees, and displaced people, but rather in ways based on partnership and solidarity, in the hope of a common future rooted in wider vision of justice and peace to which our scriptures bear witness, that we can then try and live and respond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Weller, for your input. To go into the Q&A session, what directly interests me is you talked about resonance and, of course, about what happened in Washington. And I already had to directly had to think about, are there other projects by religious institutions, initiatives for this shared resonance that you just described to us? And is there maybe, or maybe do you see potential now for something brewing up like that through things like in Washington? What I directly had to think about, it's not exactly the same, but I had to think about Nostra Aetate, the Christian approach to resonate with the Muslim and the Jewish religion. And do you see similar things when it's about the topics that we just discussed?
I think there are emerging such things. I mean, often there's been common action, of course, between people of different religious faith traditions in relation to support for migrants, refugees, and displaced people. But I guess what I wanted to draw out here is that sometimes that's almost seen as being, well, we have our own traditions, our own things that we celebrate, our own scriptures that inspire us, and then we'll do that together somewhere over here, as if there is no connection between these things. Whereas I think that there is both the challenge and the opportunity. And it is a challenge because many of us in our own traditions almost, so to speak, think that we own our own scriptures. Actually, I'm sure it isn't meant to be like that. And I'm sure if both Christians, Jews, and Muslims were to think critically about what they believe about their scriptures, they're not given just to them to own, they're given to humankind for some reason. And if that's the case, then it might be that in working together, in engaging together with those scriptural traditions, one can find an enrichment and a strengthening, an inspiration for taking into then how one practically engages with questions arising from migration, refugee, and displaced movements of people in the world today. So I guess I'm trying to think, well, how do we bring these things, can we bring these things together? It was a small, in a way, a small, one could say, almost superficial example in the Washington Cathedral, and it didn't explicitly work on an interreligious front, though later in the sermon, the bishop did refer to the importance, actually, of what she called our churches, our synagogues, our mosques, our temples, very clearly affirming a belonging together in a civil society community. But with the text, she didn't explore that further, but just merely appealed to the general sense of well, initially to try to individual conscience appeal to mercy towards strangers, whereas it suggests the scriptures actually include that as an appeal, but go beyond that. It's not just about mercy. It's about, and that's what I was trying to say about what actually actively it is that migrants, refugees, and displaced persons bring to the societies into which they come. They come as living witnesses to things which challenge.
Yes, thank you. And I think it's really nice also that you lined us out in the three faiths, if you want to call it like that, that the basis is already there, right? Because nearly every religion, every spirituality talks on the one side of the term of the stranger, at least, but always teaches us how this supposed stranger should become our neighbor, right? We have a question in the comments actually. Beyond theological reflection, what practical action points can migrant communities and their allies take from these scriptural traditions to improve their resilience, integration, and advocacy efforts?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, for those who are rooted in the religious tradition, one can and draws their individual experience from that and their individual inspiration. That's of in itself significance and importance. Of course, also these scriptural traditions do play a role in a wider cultural sense, often in different societies, even where individuals don't personally affirm a particular faith tradition. And these traditions and some of the themes from them, including, I'd suggest, in relation to the stories of migrants, refugees, and displaced people, have a role that does connect and resonate in the wider society, to which one can appeal in both making, if you like, wider social and political argumentation about the place of the people within society, and also in taking concrete actions in support. So, for example, in predominantly Christian societies, obviously not long ago was celebrated Christmas in Western Christian churches, and even less long ago in the Eastern churches. And at the heart of the story of Christmas is, as I referred to, actually the flight of Jesus and his family. So the cultural celebration of an event which is often overlaid with a lot of other stuff that doesn't actually connect with the heart of the message, but it's possible to recover some of that because there's still a cultural memory, a cultural resonance around the flight of the baby Jesus and the family and one can appeal to these things, I think, to some degree. That's not to be idealistic about it, but it is to say that I think this is also an important part of taking concrete actions forward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to change an environment in which these matters are perceived.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's see. What I also maybe for as a last question or a last quick field where we could go in, I also really liked how you described that there lies the potential in the resonance also to hold up the mirror to
Yeah.
society and to maybe state actors. And what I think it's very interesting right now with especially with the situation in Europe is that the European Union, if I'm informed correctly, at least defines itself as a union based on Christian values. But when you look at the politics right now, they are not really holding that up. So could you maybe once again elaborate a little bit how you can hold up the mirror to political actors?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, in relation to the nature of the European Union, I mean, actually, when the Union as such was created, and I say that as a part Brit who's partly outside, but now as a German who's thankfully, in my perspective, back inside, but there was a big debate about was there a value base, and it was quite a controversial debate, actually, and what that value base would be and whether religious tradition would play a part in that or not. Personally, of course, can be quite problematic to attach the label Christian or Muslim or Jewish to many different forms of political organization or state formation or society, because all of these things are ambiguous at the least, and sometimes take forms that are worse than ambiguous. And just having a label attached to them doesn't help. In fact, it makes matters worse potentially, because it obscures things, and also it makes claims in a way that reinforce, from a religious perspective, anti-human things. And for me, that's what lies at the heart. What is it that lies at the heart of the scriptural traditions and that Jews, Christians, and Muslims share? And I'd suggest it is this focus, this on the human, not on the human on its own, so to speak, but the human within its larger place within reality, and a reality that is one that can be, in that sense, depended on and built upon positively. So now I've got lost in my answer to what your question was. Talking about, yes, what? I'm sorry, I've just got lost.
No, I think you elaborated quite nicely how it is when you put a label, of course, not a union like that, but the potentials to hold up the mirror to political actors, political.
But holding up the mirror, yes. Well, I think the mirror that needs to be held up is fundamentally, in the end, a human mirror. That is the focus, rather than a religious label, or indeed, for those who don't espouse a religious tradition, any other kind of philosophical tradition. It's the shared humanity that needs to be held up as a focus. That, of course, is not enough, because there's the hard, just saying that is like the flip side of those who, in a populist way, say, oh, well, we can solve everything overnight. Well, it's not true. Human life, individual life, family life, social life, political life is all very complicated. And you can't just wave it away with a wand, with a populist wand, nor can you wave it away by saying, oh, well, let's just focus on the human and it's okay. There's still the hard work to be done of what does that actually mean being translated into concrete, historical, legal, and other forms. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Weller. And now for the end, maybe tell us again how we can follow you, how we can stay in touch with your work, and maybe also what is important to you to tell us where we should lay our focus on.
Oh, well, yes. Well, you can find me, I'm still on Twitter. I'm not entirely moved over to Blue Sky yet, though I'm there as well. But on Twitter, I'm at Paul G. Weller, so Paul G. Weller. And you can also find information, I guess, about my work and my publications if you go search for Regent's Park College in the University of Oxford. I'll just type that in so that it can be, people have got the correct spelling, because it's, and there is another college called Regent's Park College, which is in London, but it's Regent's Park, Oxford. Then if you search on my name in that, you'll be able to bring up, and also under Oxford University, you can find a profile and some of the stuff I'm involved in, which is largely, as you said in your your introduction, to do with interreligious relations, but particularly not only in the personal sphere, but in the social and political environment. And especially with concerns about discrimination and unfair treatment on the basis of religion or belief, and the importance of freedom of religion and convictions. Yeah. So, but thank you very much for the chance to take part in this, and looking forward to other contributions to what I think looks like it's been an extremely rich set of sessions that, when put together with the other global contributions and chance to look at it all later, I'm sure will be enlightening and challenging us for us all.
That's amazing. And all the streams will stay online on YouTube forever, so enough time to rewatch everything. Thank you so much, Dr. Pauwella, that you joined us, that you made time for us. As we all know, it's the end of the semester right now, and the schedule is always full. So special thanks to you. We can go to our next talk for today. And I see Professor Dr. Hüseyin Demir is already with us. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I hope you are all well as well.
Yes, yes. And I see Dr. Sotiris Livas already also joined us. Hello. Nice to have you. And I think some of you also know each other, right?
Yes, yes. With Mr. Weller, with Mr. Demir. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk in this session. It's a great honor for me. And I meet with people that I have met before. I have seen them before in conferences, Mr. Weller, Mr. Demir. So it's a great joy for me. Thank you very much.
Amazing. So then we will go on with our next talker. As I already said, it's Professor Dr. Hüseyin Demir. Among so many great things, Professor Dr. Hüseyin Demir is the legal counselor and the president of Human Rights Defenders. Human Rights Defenders e.V. is a non-profit association working to defend human rights and support persecuted people around the world, with a special focus on Turkey. HRD was founded in Germany by Turkish lawyers. Today, Professor Dr. Demir will give us a talk called The Erosion of Rule of Law as a Catalyst for Migration, exploring causes and consequences on an example case in Turkey. In this talk, Dr. Demir will examine the critical link between the erosion of the rule of law in a nation and the subsequent increase in migration and leaving as asylum seekers rates. Dear Dr. Demir, thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
Thank you. Yes, we are living in an era characterized by unprecedented global mobility, where people are increasingly on the move, seeking safety, opportunity, and a better life. However, one of the most pressing drivers of migration today is the breakdown of legal institutions and democratic principles. In this presentation, I will delve into how the erosion of judicial independence, civil liberties, and democratic institutions triggers migration waves. With Turkey as an example, I will explore the profound implications for both origin and destination countries and discuss potential pathways toward rebuilding robust legal frameworks to address the root causes of forced migration. Let's begin by examining the social political challenges that lead to migration. Firstly, the loss of personal freedom is profound in this regarding this migration. Citizens face restricted freedom of expression, limited media accesses, and constrained political participation, resulting in self-censorship and social isolation. People often feel trapped in a climate where their voices go unheard. Secondly, there is economic instability, high unemployment, rampant inflation, and currently devaluation force families to consider migration as their business and saving deteriorate. The prospect of a better economic future elsewhere becomes increasingly appealing. Moreover, social discrimination plays a significant role. Systematic discrimination based on political views, ethnicity, or religious beliefs can severely affect individuals' career prospects and access to essential public services, pushing them to seek more equitable environment abroad. Lastly, parents are deeply concerned about education quality. The deterioration of education under political interference limits their children's future opportunities. With these social political challenges, it is no wonder that many feel compelled to leave their homeland. As we consider the implications for host countries, it is essential to recognize both the challenges and opportunities presented by migration. Migrants often bring new skills and contribute significantly to the workforce, particularly in sectors facing labor shortages, such as in Germany, as you know. Many are highly educated professionals capable of filling critical gaps in industries like healthcare and technology, thereby enhancing the host country's economic vitality. However, it is important to acknowledge that cultural differences and competition for resources can lead to social tensions. Language barriers may initially hinder integration, while differences in customs and traditions may create misunderstanding within the communities. Successful host countries implement comprehensive integration programs to maximize benefits while minimizing challenges. These programs may include language training, cultural orientation, and job placement services that facilitate smoother transition for migrants. Now it comes to, we are going to talk about the erosion of rule of law. So to understand the relationship between the erosion of rule of law and migration, we must first grasp what constitutes a robust legal framework. A fair and impartial judiciary is paramount, one that is free from undue influence from other branches of government. This entails protected tenures for judges, merit-based appointments, and adequate resources for courts to function effectively. When judges can make decisions based solely on facts and law, public trust in the legal system strengthens. Moreover, accountability is critical. The government and its officials must be held responsible for their actions through transparent oversight mechanisms, ensuring public access to information and audits of public spendings. Finally, the protection of fundamental rights, such as freedom of speech and assembly, is essential. A robust system of civil liberties fosters public discourse, enabling citizens to engage fully in democratic process. These three pillars work together to create a society where laws are clear, fairly enforced, and equally applicable to everyone. When the rule of law deteriorates, the consequences ripple across society, affecting institutions and individual citizens alike. Turkey serves as a powerful case study for examining the link between the erosion of rule of law and migration patterns in a modern democratic state. Since the 2016 coup attempt, Turkey has witnessed a significant decline in rule of law, marked by judicial reforms and increasing executive controls. This deterioration has driven many citizens, particularly skilled professionals, to seek safety and opportunity abroad. The country has faced a notable brain drain, with young professionals, academics, and business owners increasingly leaving for better prospects. The weakening of rule of law has also led to a decline in foreign investments, economic instability, and business confidence, each further propelling migration trends. Mass arrests, arbitrary detention, and systematic suppression of civil liberties have created an environment of fear and uncertainty. Independent media outlets have been closed and journalists imprisoned, making Turkey one of the world's largest jailers of media professionals. The crackdown on dissent has only intensified with thousands of public servants dismissed with due process. As we analyze the migration trends from Turkey, we find the migration, European Union remains the primary destination for that, hosting about 50% of Turkish diaspora. Countries like Germany, France, and the Netherlands attract many due to established Turkish communities and economic opportunities. According to statistical data, based on 2022 statistics, in the EU, 7,000 million people as an immigrated into the EU, and 2,073,73 people are in the UE emigrated from one country like Poland or Bulgaria or Romania to other countries. But 4,300,000 people immigrated from outside of the EU. And when we look at this, asylum seekers or refugees in this are not the biggest part. Illegal boarding crossing is a small fraction in this one. Like when you look at 2023, there were 122,000 refugees, and Turkey comes third in this. When you look at the Syrian and others, they are usually after the civil war or there was a war in the country. But when you look at the Turkey, it's either economic or political reasons. So it's quite a large numbers, especially after the 2016. People who seek asylum in the Europe or United States or Canada significantly increased. And that shows how the erosion of rule of law, have this asylum seeking reason. So this is important part. Interestingly, 35% of immigrants are highly educated professionals, particularly in academia and research, contributing to this so-called we call brain drain, affecting Turkey's development. North Africa and Australia are also emerging as key destinations for skilled Turkish tech workers. Since 2016, an average of 275,000 people, Turkish citizens, have emigrated annually, resulting in a global Turkish migrant population rise. This significant migration has complex consequences for host countries as well. Economically, they experience benefits from an increased skilled labor force, entrepreneurship, and enhanced cultural diversity. However, the initial strain on public resources and infrastructure can create social tensions. For Turkey, the consequences are severe. The exodus of skilled professionals, particularly in critical sectors like academia, healthcare, and technology, creates substantial gaps in essential services. Families become separated, and communities lose valuable members, weakening civil society leadership and creating democratic imbalance. To effectively address the erosion of the rule of law and its impact on migration, a comprehensive approach involving both domestic reforms and international cooperation is essential. Firstly, judicial independence must be restored through structural reforms that ensure merit-based appointments and security of tenure for judges. Emergency laws enabling arbitrary government actions should be repealed, and transparent grievance mechanisms should be accessible to all citizens. When you keep in your mind that more than 35% of judiciary were expelled after the coup attempt, and instead of these expelled or discharged judges and public prosecutors, government recruited 3 times more judges and prosecutors from the party lines. So now the Turkish judiciary is completely under the executive or government's control. And as I always say, during the Nazi era, judges were instructed saying that if the Hitler was on this bench and think what he would decide on the case, so you pass your judgment as you are Hitler. So it's like the same in Turkey now. Judges either fear of the government or believing in Erdogan. They just act like if Erdogan was on the bench as a judge, how he will decide, and they decide accordingly. Turkey, furthermore, failed to implement international human rights decisions, especially European Court of Human Rights and United Nations decisions. So it is crucial to fully implement international human rights decisions and recommendations from bodies or judgments like the European Court of Human Rights, ending arbitrary detentions, ensuring fair trial rights, and restoring due process protections for all citizens are vital steps toward rebuilding trust in institutions. In conclusion, the dynamics of migration are complex and multifaceted, particularly when influenced by the erosion of the rule of law. Turkey's experience serves as a stark reminder of the consequences that arise when legal institutions and democratic principles falter. So as we move forward, it is imperative that we foster dialogue, promote reforms, and work collaboratively to rebuild robust legal frameworks that protect fundamental rights and address the root causes of forced immigration. By doing so, we can create a future where individuals are not compelled to leave their homes in search of safety and opportunity, but can thrive in their own communities. Thank you.
Dear Professor Dr. Demir, thank you so much for your talk, and especially that you gave us the legal perspective, which I think is also a really important perspective, which we haven't heard up to here, at least in the European hub. Thank you so much for your input. What would interest me directly is you talked a lot about the situation in Turkey, but also a little bit globally. From the law perspective, maybe you could elaborate again a little bit on which repressions you or your organization is facing in the world or in terms of law, especially in Turkey, but also if you a little bit globally, if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more.
I'm sure the other speakers have already mentioned about the rising populism and the trend towards authoritarianism. So when look at the world, unfortunately, after maybe the era of democratization after the fall of Soviet Unions, then we turn back and start living like 30s or 40s, as you can see in Hungary or United States now, and Venezuela and other countries, many other countries. And although Turkey was trying to be part of European Union, but after 2013, the government has changed its direction and they decided to become, authoritarian and one-man rule. And it has greatly affected the citizens in Turkey, especially for the people who oppose these policies, who are more in line with universal values and in support of European values and European Union membership. So when you oppress your people and don't give them a chance or space to be themselves, to live as they believe, and to express their own opinion freely, then these people, especially if they are skilled people, educated people, they look for other places to live freely. I am one of the example. I was a law professor in Turkey, and I had to leave my country because I was labeled as a terrorist. Why? Because I speak openly against the government policies, and there is a arrest warrant on me, and even reward. If someone deliver me to Turkish government, they'll get a reward for it. Why? Because I established a organization here, especially focusing on Turkey and other countries, but especially Turkey, and actively engage United Nations meetings and European Court of Human Rights. And Turkish government, as an authoritarian government, sees this as a threat. I'll give you one example. I'm sure Professor Livas knows it. We gather in Strasbourg for the last 3 years to call the European Council and the court, saying that please don't delay the cases come to Turkey because people need to breathe. We don't use any slogans or any poster against the Turkish government. This year, I went there with my family, and you know what? Even my 18-year-old daughter was labeled as a terrorist in Turkish courts because they took these photos of participants, and she was, profiled as a terrorist. Now she can't go to Turkey to visit her grandparents and other families. Okay, I am all right, but she came here when she was 11 years old. So this is how ridiculous it is. And obviously this immense pressure makes people like me or my family to leave our own country. And now I am a German citizen. Anyway, I became a German citizen, but this is a very painful journey. So people, especially in the West, should understand that if someone leaves their home country, it's not for out of joy, because I had more luxurious or comfortable life in Turkey before things went south.
And it's your home, right? It's your home.
Yeah, and it's my home, and I have to, I lost my job, my house, and everything, and all ties with my families and all. So this is important. So to have an empathy for the migrants as well. And if West wants to stop these refugee waves, they should focus on not the strengthening borders, but to force the countries to become more democratic and make reforms regarding the rule of law and other institutions.
Yes. And connected to that, also withdrew the own Western influence that is still there and that is also influencing these things, of course. And thank you so much also for your personal for the little personal insight that you gave us. I'm also myself, as you know, I'm working for the Forum of Intercultural Dialogue, which is a Muslim organization based in Germany, but it's inspired and follows the teachings by the Hizmet and Fethullah Gülen, of course, and a lot of people working for us, me not, of course, but are also kind of similar affected by the things that you told us, especially when it's about Turkey and the situation there right there. So thank you so much. And maybe as a last question, you mentioned that, or maybe let me go in like this, that there are also, of course, barriers of law, right? Although we move in law and regulations, and sometimes it can help, it can also be the other case. So maybe, and you talked about, especially about the failure of implementing human rights recommendations. For example, the ICJ is in itself a nice institution, but in a lot not legally bounding. So more a representation of these things. So maybe what do you view as important to bring this maybe discourse of law or dialogue of law further to a point where things like the implementation of human rights recommendations are discussed in like a real truly matter and not like in a kind of representation matter, as you already quickly got on in your talk?
First of all, some of the institutions have a right to, it's like a court order, like European Court of Human Rights, and Turkey is part of it, and like Hungary or Georgia as well. So when the court have passed a judgment, Turkey should implement that. But the duty of following that implementation lies on the Committee of Ministers in the European Council. So like Yalçınkaya case, which affects more than 100,000 people in Turkey. In that case, the court said that Turkey violated the Article 7, which is stated no crime without describing in the law, but Turkey does that. And it's been like 18 months and Turkey hadn't implemented that one. And we are pressing European Council to take action to press Turkey, because Turkey is still kind of part of Europe. So most of the economic ties with Europe. So when the European Council or European Union pressurized Turkey, Turkey obliged anyway. But one of the German politicians told me that, okay, don't expect us to raise our voices against Erdogan because there are so many refugees in Turkey. We don't want them to come to Germany. But they don't understand. This is the main case. Erdogan is one of the reasons because of the refugees they are in Turkey, because of the Syria policy and things like that. So you can't say that this is separate issues. So I think especially politicians and statesmen in the West should be more brave and courage to take an action on that and pressurize the countries to obey or comply with the international agreements they've already signed. But you see that the International Court in La Haye, ICC, which is binding as well because it's a Roma statute, but the judges been maybe persecuted by the Trump government now. So it's not just at the moment, it's not the national level, the independence of judiciary. Now there is a danger for international level as well because of these authoritarian leaders.
Yes. Thank you so much for also that appeal that you just gave us here at the end, and lining out how important this really is, and also that of course law also has its barriers and boundaries. And now maybe for the end to close our talk, you did it already at the end of your nice presentation. Maybe tell us again how we can follow you, how we can stay in touch with your important work, and maybe a quick sentence on what, in your opinion, is important, what we should lay our focus on for the future.
Okay, yeah, we are, as a human rights defenders or advocacy, we are trying to raise awareness in the West, because it's not the only victims who are affected from this violation of human rights, but whole world have been affected or will be affected. So before it's too late, we have to unite our forces and act in unity together. For that, maybe people can visit our websites and follow us on the media or social media, but give us some advices or become a volunteer for our works, especially in Germany or in Austria, Switzerland. I think that's enough for me to say at the moment. I don't want to take time from Professor Livas as well.
No problem. No, it's also
he's my friend.
Now our talk is scheduled for 14 o'clock, so we still have 30 minutes.
Okay.
So thought about maybe putting a little break in, but maybe as we have you two here, maybe out of the blue, Professor Dr. Sotiris Livas, do you maybe have a question still for Dr. Demir?
Maybe a comment. Yeah.
Maybe a comment, yes.
Okay, I think that it is very important to talk about these things, especially in these days, and especially during these early days of the Trump administration, which has, it has shaken us all, everywhere in the world. So we must maintain our balance, our mental balance, and continue to look at things that are important, like human rights, like dialogue, like communication, like the awareness of being human. And I think this is important, and I think that Mr. Demir has explained this connection between refugees and immigrants and the erosion of the rule of law. And this erosion of the rule of law, we can we can be testimony, we can watch it everywhere in the world, can watch it in the United States, in Israel, in Gaza, in Russia, in China, everywhere, in Turkey, of course, inside European Union, which is very, very, very bad and very unquieting, because we have always maintained in our hands that Europe is the cradle of human rights and the cradle of giving fights about the human rights, but this has not always been the case, and this is beginning to not be the case nowadays. So we have to fight for all these things. We have to maintain our humanity, and we have to look at things very calmly and continue to see which are our principles and what makes us as human.
Thank you also so much for that nice comment. And yes, thank you, Dr. Demir, for lending us our time.
Thank you for
We
inviting me.
we all have a tight schedule, so we're really honored to have you here in this panel. And as I said, so important to get also the law perspective, of course, which we are all living in and we all have to deal with. So thank you very much. Dear viewers, our next talk would be with Dr. Professor Sotiris Livas, but that would be in 28 minutes. Doctor, is it okay if we make the little break and stay with the schedule? Is that okay also for your time schedule? Oh, you muted
Yes,
right?
at about 2 o'clock your
Yeah,
time.
right.
Okay.
At 2 o'clock.
3
Okay.
o'clock.
And then we make
Okay.
a quick break. I will, as usually, will put up my screen with the information so that people can see what's next. And right, yeah, here we already have it. So we will cut our cameras, catch a quick break for the next 28 minutes, and then we will be back. On the one side, starting with Professor Dr. Livas, and if I can show it. Yes, and then with another panel by Dr. Skender Bruchai, which will close the European Day. So have a nice break, catch a quick breath, and we will see each other again in exactly 27 minutes. So, hello, welcome, and welcome back, everybody. We are slowly but surely approaching our next talk at 14 o'clock Berlin time. And our next speaker is also already with us, Professor Dr. Sotiris Livas. So I will give you also a quick introduction, and then I will hand over the word to you. Professor Dr. Sotiris Livas had been the head of Department of Foreign Languages, Translation and Interpreting at the Ionian University in Greek from 2018 until 2022, and is still teaching there. In his talk, Escaping from the Traumas of Yesterday and the Frustrations of Today, the Role of Interfaith Dialogue in Alleviating the Refugees' Double Melee, Professor Dr. Livas aims to clear out the meaning of psychological trauma and the prospects of well-being of the refugees as they are trying to establish a new life in their new homeland. Dear Professor Dr. Livas, thank you so much for joining us. If I missed something, please complete my short introduction of yours, and the stage is now yours.
Thank you very much. I think you said everything very correctly. So I'm trying to speak about the trauma of the refugees through the example and the paradigm of the Turkish refugees in Greece, and especially the Turkish community of Hizmet refugees in Greece, and how they try to alleviate their traumas through interfaith dialogue and through dialogue with the Greek society. I think it is a very good example because, as you may know, and a lot of you, I think they know, Greece and Turkey are considered enemy countries. So it is a very good example of how interfaith dialogue and how dialogue can help settle refugees in a new country, and how this interfaith dialogue can help refugees immerse into a new society, into a society considered as enemy until then. So we have first of all we must first of all consider that the identity of refugees is multi-traumatic. It's not just one trauma. It's not just war or torture or being thrown to jail. It is a multi-traumatic identity having to do with past experiences, of course, and past experiences are have to do with torture, have to do with war, have to do with fear, social death, loss of family, fear of death, death of relatives, and in some cases or in many cases, these are not one dimension, this is not one element, but many of them together. So we have past experiences, we have the loss of a homeland, the loss of certainties, the loss of given ways of traditions of the right thing or the only way to do things, of close family, of having to move out of your whole life. Losing a home, losing family, losing your village, losing everything. And the third trauma has to do with the present, has to do with your present situation, has to do with refugees not being able to adjust in their new situation, in their new country, feeling always being pressured or feeling always that they have obstacles in their way, feeling always uncertainty. Many people have a denial to adjust in this new situation, have the burden of memories, and they have always a permanent feeling of precariousness, if I may say so. They feel always unease, and they feel always that they have to go back. As some experts have demonstrated, most refugees prefer to forget, and prefer to forget what is the thing that is most important, the most traumatic experiences, the past experiences, the experiences of torture, of death, of losing the homeland, these experiences, they prefer, okay, to try to forget. They push them back, and they push them back in their subconscious, and they try not to speak about them or not to be too apocalyptic about them, not to reveal things about these experiences. They prefer to focus on their new life, and they prefer to focus on the present inconveniences, on things like not finding a job, or not getting the new permit, or not getting the new visa, things like that. And they prefer to forget torture, they prefer to forget death, and they focus on the things that make their life difficult at the present time. The refugees are found between past and present, have lost a homeland, and they are not being able to call their new situation a new homeland. So they have this feeling of unease, they have this feeling of double malaise, of double psychological stress. And this psychological stress is a huge impediment, a huge obstacle to their new life. In this context, most experts speak about a new sense of belonging, that the refugees have to create a new sense of belonging, have to create a multiple identity situation in which they have to move, they must move between different identities, between different affiliations. They have to be able to move across these affiliations and to make use of all these identities so that they can achieve a new situation. And in this context, the role of collectivities, the role of NGOs, the role of international organizations, of groups, religious groups, etc., is crucial in that they can provide help and they can give a new sense of direction and identity to the refugees. In this also spirit, religion can help a lot. Religious groups can help a lot, and they can help because in their core, in their fundaments, because we are talking about fundamentalism, I think that we should talk about radicalism, not fundamentalism, because fundamentalism actually is about the fundaments, the fundamenta, the institutions, the main institutions of all great religions. And in their core shell, all religions are universalistic, are ecumenical systems of inclusion, ecumenical systems that are addressed to everybody, notwithstanding race, gender, economic situation, or social status. And they also envelop everything. They take into account all moral, social, physical, and behavioral aspects of life. They address them. They have to try to find solutions to all problems of life. So they are ecumenical and they are inclusivistic. In this context also, all religions, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, also offer a means of therapy, to traumas, and they can be seen as means to help solve problems like the ones we have talked about, the problems, psychological problems or physical problems of refugees that they have lost everything. I am using as my paradigm, as my example, the Hizmet community of Turkish religious refugees in Greece. They are the members of Hizmet community in Turkey that after 2013 and especially after 2016 have lost everything in Turkey. They come as persecuted to Greece. Greece was until now mainly seen as the first station of passage in their trip towards countries like Germany or United States or Canada. But slowly by slowly, there has been built a community of refugees, Hizmet refugees in Greece, and it is very important to check this paradigm because of two things. The first one is that it is the first refugee community of Hizmet members in the world, because before 2016 there were not a lot of Hizmet members in Greece, and now there are okay, maybe 1,000 all over Greece, and all these people are refugees, are people that came to Greece persecuted. And the second one is that, um, as well we well know, Greece was seen as an enemy country. It is still seen as an enemy country in Turkey, as well as Turkey is usually seen in Greece as an enemy country. So both educational systems present the other country as the main enemy of Greece or Turkey. So the people that came here persecuted, the refugees, the Hizmet members, came with the fear that of the unknown, that they are coming to an enemy country. And most of them came with loss, with trauma. They have been persecuted, they have been thrown to jail. We have some cases, 3 or 4 families that lost kids, lost children during the passage to the islands, through Maricha, through Evros river, going to Lesbos or to Chios. They have lost people there, have lost kids. So we have traumatized refugees, we have people that have felt grief, loss. They have this trauma of torture and persecution. And we have people who have kids also that have post-traumatic stress disorder, they have psychological problems, they have mental problems. And in this context, in the context of refugees feeling that they belong nowhere, they belong not in their past, they belong not in their present, we have Hizmet community as a third homeland, a community that connects people all over the world and gives to these people, to these refugees, solace and soothing and a place to belong to. Why religions? Why interfaith dialogue? Okay, dialogue is the first means to open up to this universalistic and inclusivistic element of the religions that I have talked about before. The second thing is that all religions share a common ground of moral values and principles that can bring people together. We have not a long tradition of interfaith dialogue in Greece, and this I think it is a pity. Although we have organized interfaith dialogue with the Catholic Church, and also there are some cases of interfaith dialogue with some Protestant churches. We have also the great example of Bishop Anastasios, the Greek Bishop Anastasios of Albania, who opened avenues of dialogue with Muslims and with Catholics in Albania. So this tradition is being built now, and I think that the role of Hizmet people, the Hizmet community, and Hizmet refugees is crucial in building bridges of interfaith dialogue with Christians, with Greeks, and I think that these bridges can help them also maintain their ties and build up their ties with Greece as a real new homeland. I have made a research. There are some interviews with Hizmet members. I am planning to present them when I finish the research. We are talking about how interfaith dialogue has helped them establish themselves in Greece, how Hizmet has helped them establish themselves in their previous enemy, considered as enemy, Greece. And there are lots of meetings nowadays through via two Hizmet groups. One is called PE, it's called Source in English, PE in Greek. And the other one is Bridges of Peace, Γέφυρες Ειρήνης, in Athens, both of them in Athens. And there is also a small community in the second greatest city of Greece, in Thessaloniki, but most refugees have established themselves in Athens. There are usual sessions, regular sessions of interfaith dialogue. It's called Aristotle, from the name of the Greek philosopher. And there are meetings of interfaith dialogue between Greeks and refugees, talking about how common values and common principles can help soothe the trauma of the refugees and can help them view their new reality with their new eyes, and how all this coming together of Greeks and Turks can also help build the pieces of bridge through the Aegean Sea. Thank you very much.
Dear Professor Dr. Liebe, thank you so much for your input and your talk. It's really interesting because we also, I think yesterday we briefly got there in a talk, but we didn't have like a talk where the focus was on the traumatic experience, on the psychology, if you want to call it like that, behind that. For the Q&A session, what would interest me directly is you talked about that you experience a multi-traumatic experience, and by that, the multi-traumatic identity is formed. And out of that, a lot of migrant and refugee people feel unease, and they feel the feeling of this is not my home, or that maybe the outside world portrays or says you this is not your home. Do you think that this feeling is maybe also triggered by a wrong feeling of guilt? And what I mean by that is that yesterday we also had a talk by a person who is engaged in social work, and she's a person of color herself, and of course has faced discrimination and so on in Germany. And she said that she at the beginning had to unlearn this feeling of wrong guilt, that she asked herself, what did I do wrong? Of course, she didn't do nothing wrong. And yeah, do you see similar things in these
Yes, of course. Of
traumatic
course,
experiences?
this feeling of guilt is common to all survivors. All survivors, either in cases like this, cases of refugees leaving their countries, of survivors of war, of survivors of genocide, is very intense. This feeling of guilt. How did I survive, and why did the others not survive? And as I said, there are cases of people that have lost their kids, trying to move away. They have made the decision to take their kids from Turkey and move along and try to get in a raft through the Aegean Sea in the winter and move them to the safety to Greece. And some people have died. There's a case of one family that I went to the island of Lesbos and witnessed their tombs. We have made a ceremony there for their souls. It's called the Madden family. Madden family. They were all drowned. The husband, the wife, and 3 kids. And there's another family who lost one kid trying to pass through. So you understand that in these cases, the parents feel an unbearable burden of guilt and things that are really traumatic. And in these cases, organizations like like the ones that we have talked about, can give a new sense of direction, a new sense of belonging. It is what I call a third homeland. You have lost your your last one. You have lost your homeland. You cannot adjust to a new reality, to Greece or to whatever Western countries. And but you have, fortunately, a third homeland, an organization, an umbrella that can soothe you and give you a new sense of belonging.
And that's also the second part where I wanted to go in. I really liked just the point that you put up with Hizmet as a third homeland. Because as I said, the organization that I'm working for is also inspired and following the teachings of Hizmet and Fethullah Gülen. And also, you mentioned the situation in 2016 where thousands of people, if they even had the possibility to even do that, had to flee or were arrested and persecuted in Turkey. And I can remember that, of course, I witnessed that in the news, but I'm also a big basketball fan. And there's a player called Enes Kanter who's also a follower of Gülen and Hizmet. And I was really affected by that case because he also told the world how he lost all connections to his families because his family disagrees heavily with him, and he then also made a statement with the kind of goes into the third homeland that he has all the money and he in that sense he has a good life, but he is alone now in another country, right? And what my questions there would be, because you also talked about how religious groups, systems, institutions move a little bit closer now, or to inclusivity. Oh God, this word, and or to put it in another way, to the approach to give a space of healing, or at least an opportunity to heal again and to go into therapy, or religious kinds of therapy. And I would really like if you could maybe elaborate a little bit on the potential that lays in these kind of forms of healing, forms of therapy that come from religion, because mostly everybody who is fleeing right now is also a religious person, of course, and maybe can connect way better with this type of therapy and healing than with a solely medical way, if you want to call it like that.
We we prefer to stay on the negative things and on the negative elements of religions. We prefer to talk about exclusivistic and radicalistic groups like terrorists, like ISIS, or like people that are using the Bible as a weapon in the United States or anywhere else. And we prefer to forget that in reality, all religions are inclusivistic in their core. Have given the word fundamentalist to the radicalists, to the terrorists.
Yes, as you already also mentioned.
Yes, the fundaments are come to us. We are open. We are open to everyone. And using this universalistic, this ecumenical element, we can see religions as means, as therapeutical means, as remedies. And when this element is being used through dialogue, and the dialogue is the best way to open up to this inclusivistic element. So you can see that Catholics, Protestants, and Muslims, and Jews, and everyone else has a moral ground, has an anxiety about hereafter, has a love of God, has love of a good life, of prospects for their children. So we have the same elements, and we can use these elements to offer a new homeland to refugees, and to make people in the West not fearful of their coming. So we can have religion used as a means for adjustment, to adjust to a new life and to make citizens of Western countries not feel afraid of their coming.
Okay, thank you. And maybe as the last question, also going into that point, as you are engaged in this work, do you have the feeling that things like therapy, healing spaces, things like that, that religious institutions and organizations that are helping, are they already using these resources that are out there or I mean, you could always do more, of course, but
Yes, yes, yes,
is
yes, yes,
there a
yes.
development where you would say that that we are on a good way, or is it maybe still a little bit too low, and there should be just way?
I think that we have a lot of work to do. I think that we have a lot of work to do with specialists, with psychiatrists, with people that um, are psychiatrists or psychologists, but they have also a religious, side to them. There are people like that, and there are people that can understand the trauma and can approach the trauma through religion and through spirituality. So it's very important to have people like them. I think that for now, what gives soothing to the refugees that I have met and have seen is the prospect of a new life, of stability, of having roots in a new country, and of understanding that the Greek society can help them and can approach them. And this is now beginning to be seen. So for now, we have things like that. But okay, we are in need of more specialists because we have lots of kids that suffer from PTSD, lots of ladies, of women, of people that have lost their children. So we are in need of more specialists like that.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that appeal also at the end. And maybe, as we do for every closing of every talk, maybe tell us again how we can follow you, how we can stay in touch with your work, and maybe in a quick statement, if you want to call it like that, where you would like us to put our focus on for the near future.
I have my page in academia. I have my page in LinkedIn, so that people can find me there and come in contact with me there. I have to greet my friend Skender Gojai. And I think that what I have talked before with Mr. Demir, I think that interfaith organizations can put the stress on bringing people together and talking about human rights and the rights of refugees and giving new prospects to refugees. And I think it's very important, especially important in our days, as I have said before, we have the Hurricane Trump, and we must adjust to a new reality, not losing our values. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that amazing closing statement too. And thank you also for lending us our time, because as I'm saying at the end of every talk, we all are in the final weeks of the semesters and the schedule is always full. So thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you very much.
Thank you so much. Dear viewers, yes, our last but not least talkist, presentationist is already here in the room. Dr. Skender Bruchai joined us. Hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you doing?
Also good. I still have a lot of energy left for our last talk. And yeah, I would say we could wait these 2 little minutes that we have left
Yeah,
for the
absolutely right.
Maybe just let me ask you just a technical question. Did you prepare any kind of presentation? Or
No, just I will.
okay, it wasn't an obligation, just as a
Yeah.
technical then I would have asked if you are able to share your screen. But okay. Well, then I think we can slowly start. So I will quickly introduce you, and then we'll hand, of course, the talk over to you. And if you still, of course, want to add something to my little introduction, you are free to do something. So, dear viewers, we are coming now to our last, but as I said, not least, talk of the second day of the European Hub for the Fratelli Tutti Belonging Together conference, and by that also our closing talk. We have with us Professor Dr. Skender Bruchai. He has been a professor at the University College Beda in Albania since 2011. He served as a chairman of the Albanian Muslim community from 2014 until 2019. Mr. Bruchai has a PhD on quality management in higher education from the European University of Tirana, and he is part of KAICIT, an international fellows program which brings together religious leaders, scholars, and activists from different religions in order to cooperate, exchange ideas and expertise on interreligious dialogue, coexistence, and pluralism. In his talk called Interfaith Engagement and Shared Values for Shaping Migrant-Sensitive Societies, Interfaith Initiatives, Role in Migration and Solidarity, Professor Bruchai will show us how interfaith engagements are crucial in shaping migrant-sensitive societies by promoting shared ethical values such as compassion, justice, and human dignity, which transcend religious boundaries. Dear Professor Dr. Bruchai, thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
Thank you, Demir, for having me. Actually, it's a very good topic and very sensitive, actually, in nowadays in our very dynamic and complicated world. So it's very important to increase the awareness regarding societies to be more migrant sensitive. So in order to understand the topic of moral obligation toward refugees or vulnerable migrants is complex and has different dimensions. It is influenced by, let's say, ethical, legal, humanitarian, and political dimension, and each factor shapes the discourse and has a profound implication regarding the treatment or integration of migrants or displaced individuals or refugees. So in this context, ethical consideration call for compassionate action, respect for human dignity, while legal frameworks determine the rights and protection efforts to refugees. Humanitarian approach concerns regarding the drive for urgency in providing the aid and support in crisis. But all those dimensions has its own political context, and political context can either facilitate or hinder the effective responses. So it's very important to understanding this interplay between these dimensions is crucial. So to address the refugee challenges regarding their ensuring their well-being or integration in society. So nowadays, the need for inclusive communities is more urgent, and it's very increasingly because our world is going to be more interconnected and is characterized by very complex different social dynamics. In some consensus, the social challenges arising from migrants often prompt various religious and cultural groups to confront with their differences while seeking common ground. So in this context, I believe that interfaith initiatives are powerful mechanisms that can foster the dialogue and understanding by highlighting the shared values. Such efforts promote solidarity among diverse populations are fundamental in developing the migrant-sensitive societies. Actually, regarding the interfaith solidarity and interfaith cooperation, there is already a common ethical ground. So many religions share principles of compassion, hospitality, and care for the stranger. For example, let's say Christianity speaks for welcoming the stranger. Islam emphasizes the duty to offer hospitality and protection to those in need, including refugees. Judaism also has the concept that treats the stranger with commands to love and regarding to protect them. Also, the Buddhism advocates the compassion and violence. And we can add many religions, they have the common ethical background to cooperate and to work together regarding creating the awareness for more sensitive migrant societies. But I want to ask DaMOst as a fundamental question, why interfaith cooperation is necessary and is important in this context. So first, let's say interfaith engagement are crucial in shaping migrant-sensitive societies by promoting those shared ethical values such as compassion, justice, human dignity, respect for each other, and creating safe zones for migrants to integrate in different societies. So interfaith collaboration enhances this mutual respect and facilitate a smoother integration when it comes by addressing cultural and religious barriers that most of the times are present when it comes to migrant integration in different multicultural, multi-ethnic societies. So ultimately, interfaith cooperation or interfaith initiatives can highlight the migrants' contribution to society. So by fostering environment acceptance, that to equity, to justice, and to collectively responsible for building a peaceful and diverse communities. So even by fostering the differences that migrants can create to do the society for better also is a very important component. So another important contribution that interfaith initiatives can do is by engaging interfaith dialogue. So interfaith dialogue is quite important because it can facilitate a shared understanding between different beliefs, the believers regarding their experiences in the society, by encounters natural spaces free from social judgment, enable participants to find a common ground while confronting discrimination. In some cases, we see that discrimination or negative stereotypes are present in unfortunately some spaces in different countries. So integrating those shared values is very important when it comes to develop the migrant-sensitive societies. Another approach that interfaith collaboration can create a different society by fostering a community integration. So because faith-based communities can be multi-ethnicities, can have different linguistic groups within them, can serve like a natural space, a natural area for social and cultural integration. Even by opening their environment for migrants to integrate, can facilitate the integration of migrants in society sometimes by offering, in many cases like in Greece and Italy and some places in Europe, by offering job training, mentorship programs, by provide language classes, can facilitate the newcomers to adjustments in new environment in society. Another approach that interfaith cooperation can create a difference is about creating a modeling inclusive narratives and good practices. So it's very important. So as influential moral voices, religious leaders, they have a moral voice in their communities, and they have a unique capacity to shape social attitudes. Sometimes even by increasing their public statement in different ceremonies or community events, engagement, they can speak about empathy, to increase the empathy toward migrants, to counteract negative stereotypes and xenophobia rhetoric. So it's very important. Another approach or another content that interfaith cooperation can create a change in migrant-sensitive societies also by advocating for policy change. Unfortunately, in Europe, in many contexts, we see that an increase of public discourse regarding the migrants and a negative approach from some political actors. So by affording a different direct support, faith-based actors can play a considerable role in shaping ethical discourses in public policies on migrants. They can bring, for example, moral arguments to the public square by urging policymakers to adopt inclusive policies and frameworks that uphold the principle to justice and compassion. They can mobilize different social, faith-based actors, non-governmental organizations, and other civil actors to mobilize regarding creating the awareness to support integration of the migrants in the society. Even by facilitating those interaction among different faith groups, even create space for different interfaith engagement by addressing their difficulties, their challenges, can create a safe space for migrants to integrate in the society. So we can see that in many areas in society, we see that they can act as a good example by opening their spaces and to create this awareness in society for more sensitiveness regarding integration of migrants in their challenging context. Because nowadays it is difficult sometimes to promote the good voices. So you need to have a background, you need to work together. Unfortunately, not in many countries we can see interfaith cooperation between different faith-based actors, because they need more spaces. They need also sometimes political support, even funding, in order to create initiatives to get in help of the migrants. But creating those initiatives can create a better change in society regarding making a good examples, and those examples can be implemented in different contexts and can create actually a good change. Because first we can understand the narratives of immigrants. So by accepting them as a basic human values, by understanding their challenges, by understanding their point of view, they can help the migrants to not to have an identity crash when it comes to integration, because they accept in the base of human values. When you accept the human beings in the base of human values, it's more easy for them to integrate it and to increase their belongingness to the society, because they address the concept of the global citizens. It means that before being Muslim, a Christian, or being a Catholic, Orthodox, we are human beings, so we have the same common concern. And also we have the right to live a peaceful life and to have a life in security environment, and so to preserve our identity and also our dignity. So it is very important to provide those spaces, and the interfaith collaboration can provide this ground, because they have already this ethical, moral ground between them, because they have this diamond, they have this divinity and diamond inspiration that comes from their belief and their faith to help the integration of migrants in society, and to provide those good examples. One interesting approach would be that to identify the good actors that are doing already good work and they have the good practices in the different countries, and to help them to network. By helping them to network, it means that you can amplify their work, you can amplify their good examples, so other people, other initiatives can follow them, and also can be a good examples when it comes even to increase, to speak from their voice. And also this is totally important when you have a strong voice that speak regarding the voice of people that are not heard too much in the society. And it is quite important to have this support, because in the first place, we need also to understand the sacrifices that people, nobody is totally, comfort when it comes to migrate, or because we have a lot of forced migration from different conflict areas and zones that have problems, and they try to seek a better life in different contexts. So helping them and integrating them also, it creates the space to have a positive impact on the people's individual backgrounds. One thing also is regarding the interfaith collaboration can be a good example, even by promoting those values by education, giving space of migrants to access to education or different training programs, and also to promote those values in the policymakers, in different governments, in order to be more open regarding accepting migrants in different societies. And every country has its own challenges, but we can just talk for universal values and the need to cooperate together. So another dimension that we can add regarding the contribution of interfaith actors in migrant-sensitive society, also they can be a good example. So when the faith-based actors and religious leaders and clerics are doing a good practice, and by promoting such values, even the common people, the citizens, can follow that and can be a good example. And also it's more difficult for policymakers and politicians to challenge those values than when they are supported and they are promoted by religious leaders, because the religious leaders have a good effect on the society when it comes to promote such values. So, dear Mario, we can add a lot of different attitudes. We can add a good example regarding the role and the role regarding the facilitating the integration that they can have among different faith groups by just creating a safe space zones for participating of different migrants when it comes to society, because it is very important when you have a helping hand or open door when you need it, and because it can increase your identity in the society, and also it can facilitate your integration when it comes to be part of a complex and very specific society.
Thank you so much for your interesting presentation. To maybe directly go into the quick Q&A session, what interests me is you laid out a little bit the connections inside of the interfaith dialogue, and how the notions of that you have to be compelling neighbors, that you have to take care of the others of thy neighbor, is founded in every scripture, every religious text, no matter if it's Christianity, Islam, or the Jewish traditions. How can people involved in the interfaith dialogue maybe connect even more with each other? What I have thought of is that, for example, Jesus is not a God for Muslim people, but he sure is an important prophet through which Allah spoke to the people, or that Christians and Jews, of course, have their differences, but I think, if I'm informed correctly, they both believe they descend from the tribe of Abraham. So there are connections, there are similarities, and maybe you can tell us or give us your opinion on how you think, how much power lays in these things, and also maybe showing people from other faiths these similarities in their teachings and your own teachings.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's very important to identify the common ground, the shared values, and already we have those ethical values as a fundamental for every religion. It's very important to address those values when you want to create a change, or to create a response, or to open environment for other people. So at first you need to put those values in practices and to share them. Also, giving those spaces for different people with different identities, also it is in line with the mission of faith and in line with mission of religions. And actually, it is also a good approach to when it comes to decrease the negative stereotypes and prejudice that already exist, because since we seem that we are different and we do not deal too much in the differences, sometimes differences can create barriers. But when we teach people that the differences can as a richness, not to see as a barriers, and to create space for them to integrate, it is a nature of human beings to help each other, actually. It is to create empathy. You cannot have empathy for people that you do not know or you do not feel close to them. So you need also to provide this closeness to people to create some chance of empathy regarding helping, providing help, providing space, or even accepting them as they are. So with their identities, with their differences. So this is also very important. In some contexts, to my own experience, I saw that interfaith initiatives can create those environments, those spaces that different people can be more in harmony with their complexities and their identities, and belongingness. So in the same time, this approach can increase the belongingness of individuals to that society. So they feel that they are part of the society, because a different religion opened the space and you are welcome there. So it means that it is a good thing. You need more affiliated or more human on that. And this support is spiritual support, actually, but it means a lot of things. So in the time of need, the support is fundamental. So you remember for all your life. And actually, there are good work done in this context, because it is very important to remind people about those ethical issues, ethical ground. We have it. And faith-based actors can remind the common believers that we have in our faith this inspiration. So let's realize this in daily life. Let's do our job as a good believer. So by acting, by facilitating other people integration in the daily life. To this content, I think interfaith actors play a very important role, even when it comes to creating safe zones. Interfaith dialogue is a tool that provides this safe zone, and just even you express your challenges, your difficulties, your need for support. And if you see that someone that is not like you can provide those supported needs, also it can create a great impact in your worldview, in your accepting others, or being part or integrating that society.
Really interesting. Thank you for elaborating that, because I also had to think about, I once watched a panel of a really Orthodox Christian person, a really Orthodox Muslim person talking to each other. I don't remember the topic, but they were really divided. And through the talk, through the dialogue that they have, and through a moderator that they also had, who showed them that in their teachings and a lot of their morals, they are on the same page already. Just by a minute or two, they really got closer together and understood the pains of each other, the respect and also disrespect of each other, and you could really see also in the faces of these two persons how it made click, and they were like, "Oh, interesting to see it from that side," and that was all reached through dialogue. So thank you for elaborating on that, and maybe to stay in the interfaith dialogue, you told us about what the interfaith dialogue can do, or rather what it is doing to also get more present on the political stage, that it addresses political actors, and that it's also about identifying the good actors, of course, that are just able to help but really want to help you in a good way. So I would like to ask you, maybe on the one side, what the interfaith dialogue still can do to drag itself more on the political stage, but maybe more importantly, what can people who are maybe non-believers, who are not connected to the interfaith dialogue, what can they maybe do to help drag that more on the stage? So because I would throw in the room that you don't have to be religious or believing person.
Yeah, absolutely right.
In the interfaith dialogue and its productivity.
Yeah, absolutely right. I remember one initiative from European Union a couple of years ago regarding global exchange in religion. And actually, that was the first official initiative for European Union regarding interfaith engagement, that we see also people that are non-religious, or let's say are not religiously affiliated. It's a good on that, because it's the fundamental. Religious freedom is the fundamental human right. So the idea is not to have interfaith dialogue with people that believe different religions, but even with atheists and people that they do not believe, because in a sense is respecting the human dignity and the human's right to choose or not to choose. Also, to give the space that everyone should live his or her life in respect of his beliefs and his worldview, in confront with respecting everyone's rights. So it's very important also to understand that. And actually, when we have those spaces, we can decrease the religiophobia that exists in some political discourse. Afraidness for migrants, afraid for religious people, when it comes to public dominance in there, and also not giving too much space from faith-based actors. Actually, in many areas, faith-based actors are doing a good job, but they do not have too much space on news and on media and social platforms, because they do not have a political agenda, actually. Their agenda is humanitarian, because they believe that creating difference is by helping people, or helping people in need, or trying to accept different people with different identities and trying to make that difference. But in the policymakers' context, it is very important to identify those faith-based actors that already are doing a good job and have a good practice, and to support them to do better their work, so to increase their effectiveness and impact in the society, because it's totally important when it comes to increasing the voice that support dialogue, integration, solidarity, empathy, because we need these strong voices in society. Otherwise, we can have other discourses, other people create that want to create barriers, than to have a negative public discourse when it comes to migration or of different ethnic integration in many societies. But also for the religious leaders and faith-based actors, also it's very important to open the space for other people, not only religious people, even for people that have different identities, and to find grounds to work together. And also that is good part to create that impact. For example, there are different initiatives that say that can create change to the people's life. For example, I remember one of this interfaith dialogue session. I remember the joy of one Muslim that was held from Orthodox Church in Greece, and how commonly, how humanly was that approach, and he feel that he is not alone and can trust the people that are totally different. So it's also about the trust. So to say that we can understand that to trust people, we do not lose this idea not to trust to others. So if we can trust, we can communicate, we can interact, we can engage, and we can see the common ground and try to do things for better that work for all of us. So this is the point. And interfaith collaboration can create this bridge between different people and different groups and different, let's say, different individuals to work together regarding overcoming the challenge of creating the difference for better in the society.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Bruchai, for joining us, for lending us your time, because I can imagine your schedule is probably also quite full right now, and also for also with your talk closing the second European Day. Thank you so much for lending us our time and for attending. And yes, dear viewers, thank you so much for attending and joining and viewing our talk. Thank you that you stayed with us, and also thank you to everyone who will still in the future see this talk and go back to rewatch it, because as I already mentioned, all of our talks are going to stay online. And now it's just that you see what is happening next. So the European Hub now came to a successful end and closes now, and we are so grateful that you joined us. But don't go away yet, because we want to invite you over to the global closing of the Fratelli Tutti conference. The whole conference is going to be closed, or is starting to close at 16 o'clock on YouTube. You can watch it on this channel. Just head over to the next stream. We'll probably take 2 to 3 hours, and we will get yes, a nice recollection of the conference. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Bruchai, and I will keep our contact in mind for the future, for future projects. And yes, also again,